First of all, Dan is a very quiet and unassuming kind of man. And he's never considered himself to be in any kind of political arena. In fact, he was really taken back when Representative French asked him to step up to fill the void for the Lansing Lansing City Council. But the one thing I noticed was that he did. He stepped up. He didn't hesitate. And that tells me a lot about that man. His background, which you'll hear shortly, has prepared him for this position, even though he doesn't think so. He understands the needs of families, their struggles. He understands how the community should work and the rights of individuals. Dan is a strong conservative, a true Republican, and I know that once he wins the election, he will work hard for the people. So now I would like to introduce to you Dan Clemons.
My name's Dan Clemons, and I'm running for Lansing City Council, specifically in Ward 4. So I'm going to start off with telling you what the City Council does, because I don't want you leaving here uninformed. And I'm going to tell you where Ward 4 is, and I'm going to tell you why it's important to care about each and every representative. In Lansing, it's a little bit different. Our City Council is elected within the wards that they live in. They're required to live in the ward to vote. To run in the ward. We've got 4 wards. Each ward has 2 people. So each voting cycle, half of them are up to vote, 1 for each ward. Then I'm going to tell you who I am, because I think being on City Council is all about who the person is. If you understand where I'm coming from with my background, I think you'll have confidence in knowing how I'm going to vote. Then I'm going to do the same as what Amy did. I'm going to go through a little bit of my goals. And I'm going to tell you how I would have voted in some of the current affairs and the current struggles that we're going through. But before I leave this slide, the logo up there is serving the people, not politics. I believe in small government. I believe most of our problems is the government. I think the government needs to understand there are people that they represent.
Amen.
And I want to return to that. I don't want politics. I know that City Council is supposed to be not affiliated to any parties, but you'd have to go a long ways to convince me that that's the reality. I am a conservative. Our form of government says, of the people, by the people, for the people. I believe the government exists to serve and protect the citizens of this great country. That is why they exist. Reagan once said there's no limit to the amount of good you can do if you don't care who takes credit. I've never been one to take credit. In my military experience, if something good happens, it was the people that did it. If something bad happens, it's your fault. And that's the way I went through my military career. If we were successful, I had a good platoon, I had a good company, I had people, subordinates that did exactly what they were supposed to do, and we were successful. It's not me, it was the people. This is a snapshot of the City Council website that tells you the descriptions. For those who sit in the back, let me summarize it for you. The City Council is the legislative body of the city. They take care of all of the policy making, all of the laws, and they affirm the mayor's appointments to committee. Think of it like the Senate. They have to confirm everything the president appoints, everybody they appoint. Well, the City Council does that for the mayor. So they've got their hands on almost everything. So let me bring this home just a little bit more. The mandate that here in the city, that was the City Council that did that. Not the mayor, the City Council voted for that. Zoning ordinances, changing zoning laws and everything, that's the City Council. For those of you that have businesses that are having problems with some of the building codes and what the hoops you have to jump through, that's the City Council. okay? The fire district contract issues, it wasn't this city council, but it was the city councils that have been inherited. They didn't give themselves an out. So now they're having problems getting their own fire station stood up. So that's city council as well. They've got a unique solution to that, but I don't know if it's going to be successful. So Ward 4 goes almost to Tonganoxie Road, goes east to 4th Street. 4th Street is the divider between the wards. It goes from the south side of Eisenhower down to Ida Street. Now there's some jibs and jabs, but that's basically Ward 4. There's a little over 2,000 people in Ward 4. So all those houses on the road on the left-hand side across from Walmart, that's all Ward 4. All the housing that surrounds the golf course, that's all Ward 4. The housing area that I live in, right off the DeSoto Road, that's all 4th Ward as well. So my focus, even though my focus is Ward 4 and the people that live there, understand that when we vote, it affects everybody. So no matter where you live in Lansing, make sure you bring in people that think like you, because it's going to affect you eventually anyway. So now I get to the area that causes me the most consternation. I don't like talking about me, but Tommy said I've got to, so here I go. My name's Dan Clemons, and I'm a transplant. I've only been here 24 years. I'm married to my wife, Jacqueline, 23 years. We've got 2 boys, 3 girls, and 8 grandchildren. Half of my grandchildren live here. The 2 boys and the other half live in California because I was stationed with the Marines out there, and they got old enough to say what they wanted to do, and they just stayed out there. So I moved here under orders, and here I am. I was born in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I was the youngest of 5 children. So I always had somebody telling me what to do. No problem. My father died when I was very young, and that left my mother to raise 5 kids, all of them in diapers, as a single mother. So I know what struggles are at the family level, but she never gave up. One of my brothers, Clifton, was born cerebral palsy. He's a deaf mute, and he had brain disabilities from an undeveloped brain. So he had troubles his whole life. And my mother never left him. He was my best friend. Because of this home situation, my grandparents supported my mother and took care of the kids and made sure that we had something to eat while she went back to school. She became a special education teacher because of my brother. And we traveled from town to town wherever she could find us a job. Most of them were temporary jobs until she finally got a job that was permanent in a little town north of Dallas, Texas called McKinney, Texas. And that's where I ended up graduating high school in 1973. 8 months later, still at 17, I decided to join the U.S. Army. Because then you had to be 21 to sign a contract or be an adult. So the only way I could be an adult was in the Army. So I joined the Army. While I was in the Army, my military career, Tony had me add up everywhere I've been. I started out at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I've been Maryland, Georgia, California, Arizona, Mannheim, Germany, Kansas, and then I finally retired out of Leavenworth here as Lieutenant Colonel in 2003. So I started as an E1, and I retired as an 05. After my enlistment, I used my Vietnam educational benefits to go to college. I followed my mother. I went to Northeastern Oklahoma State University in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, almost due south of here. I received a BA with a double major in journalism and graphic arts. A year later, I entered ROTC, decided to go back in and get my commission. I did it underneath my master's program. I got an industrial technology master's program because you can't go in ROTC unless you're in an accredited program. And I already had my BA, so I went master's. I got commissioned as a second lieutenant in 1985, and when I finally finished serving the U.S. Army, I started serving the Army as a contractor, where I'm still working today, using my acquisition training, acquisition corps officer training. I developed a taste for politics, as you probably guessed it, from Mr. French. He was on the board, and I was talking to him about changing out my fence and all that. We got to get to know each other, and he asked me, he says, well, you're in the Army, you know how to write. We need to have our bylaws, we need to have our laws of the HOA rewritten. So with some volunteers, we spent about a year, we rewrote them. We went through all the laws that pertain to HOAs and we applied them. We just recently had them reviewed and the lawyer said they're good to go. So, just recently, Representative French says, how would you like to go for city council? And I know I gave him a deer in the headlight. I had never considered going to public office. That just wasn't something I'd even considered. And he says, well, don't say no. Go to city council. Let's go see what they do and tell me what you think. Just go to one. So that's what I did. I went to one of the city council meetings. I had to ask him, well, who's my representative? I didn't know which one was mine. I'd never met him. Didn't know anything about it. Looked at the agenda, and they brought up the agenda, and I said, well, how do I find out about this? Let's not post it. They post what they voted on after they vote, not before. And then if you look at the minutes, they don't tell you who voted how. They just tell you who voted different than the group. So needless to say, I was sorely disappointed with the way that they ran business. And I said, there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way. This isn't the way you serve your people. So I told Representative French, I'll step up. This is a civic duty. I've enjoyed my time here. I love this town. I love this area. I'll do my part, because if I don't do it, who else will?
That's right.
So that's how I got started. But let me tell you what drives me. The whole time I was growing up, all the adults in our family had two phrases that they kept hammering us with until you dreamed about it. One of them is, a job worth doing is worth doing right. If you're going to do something, do it. And the other one was, if you're going to do something, do it as quickly as possible. Get it done. Get it out of the way. Don't lollygag. Don't take breaks. My grandparents were farmers. And they said, you can't wait for the sun to go down to work. Get out there. And that's the way I was raised. And Representative Prince on the HOA board will tell you, anytime I've given a task, it's full speed ahead. That's the only way I know. That's the only way I know. So I will assure you that if you elect me, I will keep your needs and your thoughts and your input foremost in my mind as I'm sitting up in the council voting. Because it's not me, it's us. So here's some of the goals, but let me give you the synopsis. I'm going to provide you with the most current information of issues before City Council. One of the things I want them to do is publish what they're going to be discussing at least 7 days in advance so the people in the ward can look at it and tell us what it is. They may want to show up and talk to it. I mean, imagine that, being involved. I will inform you of how the council votes. I couldn't find on the website anywhere voting records. You have to go and dig into the agenda minutes, look at the agenda, and then see how they voted in the agenda minutes. They're just not there. I want to talk to the Ward 4 business owners and say, what can we do at the City Council to make it easier for you to earn money? We want to keep you here. I want to talk to the Ward 4 citizens and say, what can I do for you? What can I do for you? What will make life better for you here? Because we want to keep people here. We don't want them moving away. So, talking about current events, you may have heard about some of these. I will not vote for a mask mandate. I heard on numerous channels, not just Fox, by licensed doctors, not an EMT, that says putting a mask on is like putting up a chain link fence to keep out mosquitoes. And I watched my kids and my grandkids in Lansing School keep the same mask on every day, day after day, all day long. But when I go to the hospital, the doctors will take off one, put on a new one, come in, see me 5 minutes, and they take it out as they're leaving the room. Well, if it's important for them, don't you think it's important for our kids?
Yes.
No, I don't agree with it at all. I'm not going to vote for any zoning in Lansing for any recreational marijuana, period. And I won't vote for any zoning that allows it being grown in our city either. It has no place. I've been in California because my sons live there. It's horrible. I've been to Colorado Springs. The trash, the vagrants, and the violence that comes along with it, it's just unbearable. I can't imagine this community being turned into something like that. I just can't. I won't allow it. Not if I have anything to do with it. Now, the third one, I won't vote for any ordinances or policies that affect homeowners adversely. That means taxes. That means setting the mill. They raise the assessments on the house, but if they keep the mill right there, that's raising your taxes. They're just sugarcoating it. I don't believe in big government. If they're going to raise the taxes, my next question is, what are you going to do for your citizens? What extra service are you going to give that they're not getting now? Why do you need to raise them? I don't think there needs to be ordinances. Ordinance never solve anything unless there's a problem. Let's look at the problem. We don't need more laws. We've got perfectly good laws that just need to be enforced. And we got some laws and some policies that need to go out the window, just like what Trump did. They just need to go. We need to look at where our money's coming from and make sure those people in those communities stay with us, not move away. And of course, I wouldn't be a good Founders Keep member if I didn't bring up the Constitution. I will not vote for anything that will weaken an individual's constitutional right in any way, shape, or form. Amen. That is our founding right. So how can you help? My number one request is to vote. This is an off-season election. We're going to have trouble getting people out of the house and going to vote. Tell people that are like-minded to you, get out and vote. We need them at the polls. And if you do agree with what I've said, please tell your friends. Maybe you don't live in my ward, maybe you don't even live in Lansing, but I bet you know people that do. Tell people what's going on. Tell them we need their support. Get them out. If you can do a sign in your front yard, I'd appreciate it. If you can go door to door and you have time, I would love to be with you. Let me add you to the email list, because what I want to do is I want to email everybody and say, here's the next event we're going to be going to. Here's the, you can put up your signs now for the general election. No, you got to put the signs down because that's the law, and let everybody know. And if you forget, I'll be by to do it. I'll make sure it gets done. Not a problem. If you can help and host with fundraisers, I would be most grateful, because like all the other people running for office, it's expensive. The materials are expensive. I need your support, both morally and financially. Because I'm new at this, but I'm Dan Clemons, and I want to be your city councilman.
Yeah.